I like it's a good test. We always do this when we're talking about American foreign policy and stuff, and whether it's a master's program or PhD, they always say, give me an example of the country we didn't train first, right? So like whether it's Iraq, you know, Israel, of course, Afghanistan, you name it, Egypt, Libya, every single South America over the last 70 wars there, every single one of them we train them. If we stop funding these people and train them in advance, it's very easy to stop extremists from getting into power because they're so unpopular locally. They require giant foreign investment in order to get off the ground in a lot of these countries, because the natural process of humans kicking them out in any culture or country is very common. So like we prop them up and then we wonder why they're a problem. It's like, well, maybe we should stop training extremist groups, because the minerals in their countries, no sane person is going to give your oil away or your gold away, like in Sudan. They're going to fight you.
OSINT Defender just said, if reports are true, this appears to have been a near-perfect decapitation strike by Israel against Iran's armed forces and the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. I don't think they know what to do right now. It was so sophisticated and comprehensive, and well, and like precisely carried out that they're kneecapped.
Yeah, bro, I heard something similar in another space that said that it was like a next level shock and awe, like pretty wild. And I didn't realize the scope.
Don't they
breaking? Go ahead.
Missile structure where if it's headless, they can all operate autonomously. Isn't that the whole problem?
I don't know. Breaking. You got.
Yeah, I'll try this one more time. I apologize for I don't know what's going on with the connection, but as of June 2nd, apparently, Israeli officials had approved this plan to go into effect today, indicating that all of the media back and forth that we were seeing was all manufactured by Israel to kind of confuse and force movements among Israeli officials. This is a tactic they've used in the past, and it's something that appears to have been successful in this operation. We're starting to learn from Iranian state media some of the high-level officials that were taken out, in addition to the successful operations regarding the nuclear facilities across Iran. When you talk about now the potential of U.S. involvement, I think that Israel has just proved itself again that they were able to conduct another very successful operation without direct U.S. military involvement, right? I'm referencing the highly successful pager attack that took place in 2024 and other operations that were not coordinated militarily with the United States. I'm not talking about intelligence and kind of the allyship that goes on between the two countries. Right now, I'm specifically talking about direct military involvement. This appears to be a highly successful operation ongoing that did not involve U.S. military involvement, similar to other operations we've seen since October 7th. And so while Iran may see this as an escalation between Iran and the United States, I don't see Israel currently begging the U.S. for military assistance in fighting off whatever's coming next. We don't know how successful the internal Mossad operations that we're hearing about were to the infrastructure and missile silos and missile the numbers of missiles that were reportedly being prepared for the eventuality of these strikes by Israel. But that's something that we're going to be watching very carefully. And so, as I mentioned, also, we know that President Trump, who this is just a fact-based assessment, he doesn't sleep very much, will be up throughout the night and then is convening a cabinet meeting tomorrow morning. I think the reason for the delay, it being at 11 p.m., I'm getting some people asking me why it's so late, is potentially, and I haven't confirmed this, to give other cabinet members the ability to fly in for this in person versus attending it virtually. We know that Kristi Noem, for example, she's in Los Angeles as of this afternoon, so she has to get back to the East Coast, and some other cabinet members were in New York City last night, Steve Witkoff and Secretary Lutnick. So we'll wait and see what happens with that.
Ziad, bro, you got to wait until you're called on. Thank you for that. Breaking. Make sure you guys are all following Breaking 4 News, one of the best independent journalists on this platform. Connection issues aside, which I'm also suffering from right now. Ziad, you were so eager to jump off the mic, sir. It looks like you have something to add. You're from Air Arabia, so go ahead. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, thank you. I'm just listening.
Okay, I don't know why you requested then, sir. All right, I'll bring you back.
We lost audio from Diligent. Let me jump in. Diligent, of course. I just want to, bottom right hand corner, purple pill, please leave a comment. Please repost the space. Tag me or Diligent if you've got anything important. One other brief thing, this is the thing for spaces. Don't request if you got nothing to say. If you get on stage, be ready to talk, be ready to say something. I don't understand these people. But let me check in with Diligent, otherwise we'll continue on. Diligent, are you there, my friend?
I think I've got it. Yeah. Every once in a while, I completely lose audio and I have to restart the space. So I think I'm good. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you now, brother. I'll throw back to you.
Thank you. Ginger, hop in here.
Okay, so breaking. What was the validity of the Iraq, them stopping their airspace? Is that true? Because I know somebody said that on this space earlier.
Breaking 4 News, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. What was the question?
What is it true that the Iraqi airspace has been shut down?
Yeah. So the airspaces that are in between Iran and Israel have been shut down.
Did we just lose him mid-sentence again?
Yeah, he's dropped out.
Yeah.
I should say he's rugging.
Okay, go ahead, Mick. Breaking will come back to you. Hold on, Ginger.
Thanks, Diligent. I don't want to be up for too long. I think what we're seeing right now is really concerning. Like, I'm talking from an Australian aspect, of course. I think what a lot of people, especially those cheering on this war, seem to be forgetting one thing. If we see a major continued escalation in this and we see a regime change within Iran, which, some people are saying is the overall goal and some people are cheering on, I think a lot of people are forgetting that displacement of these people is going to lead to the same causes of what we saw with Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, and these people from Iran are going to end up in the same place as all those four other nations I just mentioned prior. They're going to end up in Western countries because this is what ends up happening after every single Middle Eastern war that occurs, whether that, the West is involved or not. These people will end up in our countries, whether we like it or not, and will end up becoming our problem. And this is why I keep saying that we must not get involved in this whatsoever. Like, Israel literally bombed Trump's whole diplomacy policy of what they were trying to do, and they've literally pushed Trump's hand to almost force him to get involved in an American aspect. So I don't know how people can say Israel's America's greatest ally in all this when literally they just blew up diplomacy talks literally in the last 24 hours alone. It is a scary thought that we're going to potentially see if this continues on a major front. Like, does the West get involved like they did previously, the Brits and Americans to defend Israel as they did previously? Or are the Americans going to say, you know what, this is your problem now. You guys instigated it. You're on your own. You fucking deal with the problem and let each other blow each other up, basically. It's a concerning aspect. Like, I'm Australia first principles, America first principles. It's not the West's position, but it's the West that ends up copying the fallout because we're the ones that end up taking all these people after it all. And that's what everyone should be looking at from this point. So when you see all these politicians, your senators in the States going, I pray for Israel and this, they don't give a fuck about you. It's a coordinated message across the board because at the end of the day, they will end up in your country. Whether it's in a year's time or 5 years' time, if it ends up occurring, they will end up in your country and then create other problems there. They need to stay where they are and they need to sort this shit out. So thanks, Diligent.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, and nobody wants to get us. I think that if we get dragged into this somehow, or if the Trump administration even seems like it's going to get dragged into this, it is going to face immense backlash from its own people. I know that I would vehemently and very vocally oppose it, and most of the people I know also, they're already opposing it. Even the thought of it, even the faint notion of it, people are already vehemently opposing it. So let's go to someone new. Go ahead, Enosh.
Can you hear me clearly? I'm only getting one bar. I don't know why. Can you hear me
You're
clearly?
good.
We loud and
Yeah,
clear,
yep, you're
brother. Go
good.
ahead.
I made a bet on this about 3 months before this started. It started at $500. Then me and this dude, we pushed it up to 1,000. America will get dragged into this, but whoever is thinking that the Carmanians is gonna lose this war, no, they're not. No, they're not. They won't. They will not lose this war, and it's not gonna be a walk in the park. Iran
You
is about 3 times, if I'm not mistaken. I think you could fit Iraq about 2 to 3 times in Iran. I think they're that big. That country. The terrain is similar to Afghanistan. It's not going to play out how everybody's thinking. Oh my God! No, 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 no. This is a bad move. And America will get dragged into it. But I don't see America getting too deep into it. But it's the end of this Israel as we know
there's
it.
there's
Yes.
no there's no there's no public support in America for us being dragged into a war. I can tell you that much for a
Oh,
fact.
definitely. Definitely there is none. But let's see. Let's see. But I'm not going to put it off the table. I think America will get dragged into it. But I appreciate you giving me the mic. That's all.
Thank you. Go ahead, Sarah, and then Levi.
Hi, how are you guys tonight? Just a little of my background. My father was actually in Iran in 1978, helping people get out of Iran. Who President Carter actually asked him to go and help certain families get out of there before the Ayatollah came into power. So the United States has the Ayatollah and the mullahs who are in charge right now have taken money from all the families there. We actually have friends who are still in Iran, and they hope and they've been wishing that somebody would drop a bomb on the mullahs because they've overtaken the country. When we gave money to Iran, it went to the mullahs. It didn't go to the people who they stole money from. So the people in Iran are right. Actually, I have some people I know who have been texting me. They're like so happy that someone is finally taking these guys out, um, because it's been a tyrant. It's these tyranny. It's been this tyrant. Sorry, it's been a regime that has put people in jail for having money. Friends of our family were put in jail, asking them for where their money is and if they support the Shah. And some of them actually were members of the Shah of Iran prior to the last one's family. And these people were held in jail and beaten and you know, on death's door and like finally released like after 20-25 years. So you have to understand coming from them, most of the people right now in Iran are very happy about this. I wish my father was alive to finally see us doing something about them. He passed away in November, but he went in and out of Iran a lot and was there during the revolution and was there helping families get out. And it's not us doing it, but someone had to do it because they do have nuclear facilities and they are very close to having nuclear weapons. And I know that from
Says
my
who?
father.
Says who? I've seen no evidence of that.
Our own
Well, when your
intelligence
father has the
agencies
highest
said we don't.
security clearance in the United
Bro,
States
bro,
and has
listen,
been
listen,
there,
listen,
you know
listen.
this stuff.
I mean,
It's been a
usually,
while. I'm just letting you know the people of Iran right now are cheering for this because they don't want the mullahs. And we have to
I
respect that.
remember hearing the same thing about Iraq back in the day. right? And look what happened with that. I am not a fan of this. Oh, because it sounds like psychological. It sounds like a psyop, right? It sounds like propaganda. Whenever somebody is selling me of why it's good for the country that's getting bombed, I'm like now I'm always like raising an eyebrow. I'm like, is
Sorry,
it though? Is it
because
though?
actually, my father, like about a week before he passed away, talked to our friends there, and their family has gone through hell. Um, and they kept hoping that Trump, when Trump was actually president, they were hoping he would do something. I'm not saying that this is a regime that has destroyed people. They've put people in jail. They kill people. They beat people almost to death and then let them go. It's like Syria, but on like steroids there. And I have my friend, he goes back and forth from there to go see his dad who can't get out. And it's a scary place. I'm just letting you know. It's not. It used to be one of the most cosmopolitan cities in the world. It was like Paris. People would go there to go shopping. I'm just so you know, I'm just letting you know you don't have to
Yeah, I'm
agree
not
with
saying
me.
it's a great place. Okay, I'm
You
not
don't have
saying
to
it's a
agree
great
with
place.
me. You don't have to agree with me. I'm just letting you
Okay,
know we have a different view.
I'm not saying that it's a great place. I am just saying that whenever a place gets bombed and people start telling me that the citizens love getting bombed because the rulers suck, I always I do it with a chip on my shoulder or a little bit of a jaded perception. Jim, what do you think about all of this, man? Where are we at? Is this justified? And what's the likelihood that the U.S. is going to get dragged into it?
Well, gosh, I hate to be so cut and dried as justified. I mean, listen, on one side, Israel has a right to be really concerned about Iran's intentions with the nuclear program. I can't, as much as I think that there's so much neocon effort to get everybody into war as often as possible, and they salivate over the sales of arms, which drives me nuts. At the same time, there are real issues in the world, and they do really matter. And Iran's efforts do really matter. They are a death cult. The leadership, I mean, not the people of Iran, but let me finish my statement.
Yeah, you got to go down, bro. If you don't know how to not interrupt people, go ahead, Jim.
The leadership is a death cult. But that said, I really question the timing on this. I do think Donald Trump has been doing yeoman's work, trying to get to something that will resolve all this. I do think Donald Trump has the cool head here. I don't think Netanyahu does. I'm no major Netanyahu detractor, and I'm definitely not anti-Israel. And I'm sure there are potentially people in this space that are really pissed at Israel and hate him. I don't hate Israel. I'm for Israel, but the reality is that Donald Trump's approach to peace is far different than what happens on the left, because he's not peace at all costs. And I think as this progresses, the cool head is going to be with Donald Trump right now. I'm provisionally impressed with the fact that Marco Rubio has not tried to take on a neocon track in all this. He seems to be supporting the president. I'm convinced Donald Trump is not, he's no pacifist, but he's definitely not a warmonger. And I think this is a setback. But, earlier today, particularly when the IAEA report came out, which, I mean, it had information everyone knew that Iran was hiding all this, but they finally admitted it after more than 20 years of pussyfooting around. And Donald Trump, I pictured this. Donald Trump was talking with Bibi and saying, I think this is stupid, because he definitely knew what was going on. We do, and Israel knows that they, particularly with Trump, who's not going to destroy them over it. He's going to tell him. So Trump, he says, what I imagine is he says to Bibi, listen, this is stupid. I don't support it. I'm not going to tell you how to live your lives, but I'm going to tell you that you need to trust me, that we can get this done.
Jim,
And that's just, hold
Jim,
on.
Jim, Jim,
Let me
Jim,
finish
Jim,
it.
Jim, Jim, Jim. Jim, we're gonna
I'm
have to
going to
call you.
finish, or I'm just going to drop. Okay. and then you can ask me later.
No, I dropped him.
So anyway, and I'm because I am closing here, and I figured that that's what he said to BB, but he projected that in his statement earlier today, where he says, "Listen, you know, he basically gave the play stupid games, get stupid prizes thing with Iran, and it's part of the negotiating tool in Trump's mind because he's not going to sit back and tell Israel how to run their lives, but he's also not going to go roll us into war. We had talks on Sunday that were supposed to happen in Amman, Jordan, and I know you can talk yourself to death and never get anywhere, but still, Donald Trump's able to negotiate, and I think Israel should have, in my opinion, waited to let a little more of this play out. There's time. I'm very concerned about the nuclear program. I get their concern. I worry about it too, but I'm not going to take the Mark Levin track and say just go destroy, destroy, destroy. Now, net thing, and I'm going to finish with this. Charlie Gasparino put out an interesting post today. Charlie's a friend of mine, and I know he sometimes blasts on Trump in ways people don't like. Charlie's an honest, straight up guy and a friend. He said, "Listen, you just make it a black swan, and peace comes out of this as they destroy the mullahs and destroy whatever." I mean, I hope that happens. I just don't know. I still think that there's a high possibility we're going to have some of our bases hit, and Trump is going to have to respond to it. And war begets war, and that's the big problem with war. It begets war. So that's where I'm at on all of it.
So you think that we're going to be able to negotiate our way away from getting drawn into the conflict directly?
Well, things are going to have to play out. I don't know about any negotiations right now, and you're in the middle of hot conflict. So that's not a negotiating place typically. I mean, there'll be some discussions or whatever, I'm sure, potentially, if Iran's willing to listen even a little bit. But no, we're in the middle of this. We got a couple weeks or more of this happening, and then we're going to figure out, if we have a few months more thereafter. That's where.
Hold on, Doc. Anyways, man, people are just eager to talk over you, Jim. I don't know what's going on. Can you guys hear me? I don't know. Doc, we can hear you. Come back up, bro. It wasn't you. Mr. Mad. All right, bro. You're so eager, dude. You're so eager to get in here. Go ahead. Repost the space, everybody.
I think can you guys hear me? Yeah, all good.
Bro, go.
Yeah. So I think what Jim's point was, right? But Jim's point, and it's a valid point. But Jim did state in his own self, he said, "It's my opinion. It's my opinion," right? So what Jim's stating is his opinion, and everyone who's listening on the chat needs to be aware that everything that Jim says is his opinion. And respect
everything that we're all saying is pretty much opinion, bro. We're all speculating right now.
Yeah. But as a commentator, Jim is a well-known commentator, right? So as a commentator, I'm just emphasizing the fact that what Jim has said is his opinion.
Yeah, but dude, that's not an argument. Of course, it's my opinion. But my opinion, I will hold on. I will tell you this. I do not, and people who have ever listened to me in spaces, and most of the people in diligent spaces have heard me often, know that I do not declare things as the law and I'm right and you need to shut up. That's not what I'm doing. Now, if you want to say someone's doing their opinion, say it to that person, because none of us knows. None of us knows everything. What I bring to the table, which apparently you are not aware of, is I do have many years of experience dealing with things in Washington, D.C. I worked on Capitol Hill. I understand how things play around here.
Are you a friend? Is this a friend of yours, Jim? I mean, why is this guy coming at you randomly?
I have no idea. But anyway, so I don't think I know everything. I'm not God. Neither are you, by the way. Let's just make that clear. So you can express your opinion and I'll express mine. Mine has some understanding about it. It does not have clairvoyance. So you can take it or leave it with whatever way you want. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you can go ahead and promote yours and then say, well, Jim's just his opinion, but mine's the fact, which is what you're implying logically in that. So have an argument. Say what you think. I'll say what I think. Okay?
Yeah. What's your opinion, Mr. Mad? Why don't you tell us your opinion?
Yeah, okay. So that's not the angle that I'm coming from, right? I've just came off a 1-hour conversation, right, with another group of guys, right, about how in tangent and how difficult things are about opinions in inverted commas in the UK at the moment, right? So, Jim, that's nothing in terms of what you're reporting or your opinion, right? I'm saying that we need to be very careful at this stage of reporting about what is opinion and what is fact. I'm not reporting anything that's opposite to what you're reporting, Jim. I'm just saying that in the UK at the moment, it's very come see, come sa about what's being reported. And you have a history and a knowledge and a respect of being a reporter. But people need to understand that what's coming from mainstream media at the moment isn't necessarily fact.
Well, then now,
And he
if that's
never
your
said it
point,
was
then you're
fact.
absolutely correct about that, because nobody really much knows what's going on except people in government agencies. And by the way, I'm not a reporter. I worked in the U.S. Congress as a chief of
Yeah, but
staff
you
for
have an
a different,
audience. You have
but
an audience.
yeah, and so I express it in that way. But anyway, without continuing with the opinion thing, the reality is, yes, we don't know everything that's going on right now. This is a very difficult time to try to gather what the situation is. Now, what I gave you as a firm statement is my assessment of what I heard Donald Trump saying today and other things that were being reported on it. That I have a great deal of expertise in, because I have a lot of expertise in having thought behind the scenes before you say something publicly, how you may put it together, and then how that ends up going out. And I have certain connections, around Trump, and I don't know him well, but I know people around him, and I've observed what he's done. I'm just giving you my assessment based upon what I've seen the guy do. And by the way, Marco Rubio is not going to be going out and saying we are not supporting this in any manner.
I'm
And there's
seeing reports that Iran is claiming that the United States was involved. Quote:
of course.
Israel's attacks were aided by the U.S. They will pay a heavy price and should expect a severe response from Iran's armed forces. End quote.
Which was already set in the stone, because they talk about this all the time. So yeah, they are not honest brokers. I don't think that everyone is pure. Anyone's pure as the wind driven snow in any of this, but they are
Jim,
they
can
are
I ask
not pure
before
as
you
the wind
leave it,
driven
was there
snow.
any UK involvement in this?
What did you say
Bro,
now?
what does the UK have to do with this? Nobody's talking about the UK right now. I don't
No,
know.
no, I'm just asking Jim if there was any UK involvement. That's it.
I doubt there's UK involvement,
He's
except there's
trolling you. I'm
probably
gonna bring you back up in just a
probably
moment, bro. I'm
intelligence
gonna bring
stuff.
you back up in just a moment. You're I don't know. I don't know if we're getting trolled right now or what's going on with these people. Let's go to breaking. He's got some important information to come in with, and then we'll kind of reset the space. Welcome everybody. Obviously, Israel has bombed Iran as well as carried out a covert military operation alongside it on the ground, carried out by Mossad, apparently. Assassinating a number of Tehran's head military forces, and has kind of carried out this surgical strike against Iran's military and some of its head officials successfully, it appears so far. And so we're kind of dealing with the backlash. Iran, of course, is implicating apparently the United States. I'm waiting for a source on that, as well as we're waiting for their kind of retaliatory attack, and we'll see what that looks like. Go ahead, breaking. If you got something new, I'm sorry, Jim. We'll come back to you.
Yeah, no, we'll definitely find out what this is going to look like when it comes towards retaliation. What I would say is Iran's response and their implication of the United States follows along the same trajectory and the same kind of language that we saw the last two times that they threatened Israel and then eventually launched a missile and drone attack at Israel in October and April of last year. So I wouldn't take that with any additional measures just yet. I think Iran would be much more. It will take them longer to decide if and how they would want to involve the United States in their retaliation. I think what will eventually see more quickly would be the immediate retaliation against Israel. Discussions now among Israeli intelligence officials as to how broad that attack would be. And as I mentioned at the top, but we've had a lot of turnover and additional viewers, listeners, is that the attack in April of 2024 included drones and a smaller amount of ballistic missiles. The drones and other technology take several hours to travel from Iran to Israel, and therefore the United States and other Middle East elements were able to shoot most of those down before they even entered Israeli territory. The attack in October was broader and included about 200 ballistic missiles directed at Israel simultaneously, and that was much harder, but not impossible, for the Israeli defense systems to intercept majority of the ballistic missiles that were aimed at civilian targets and allowed a few of them to fall in open areas. If Iran were to increase the number significantly of ballistic missiles that they sent at once, you could potentially see an overwhelming of Israel's defense systems. And that's when you would see these potential ballistic missiles falling into civilian areas and possible casualties, which would only further escalate the situation. Now, what Israel learned from those two attacks is that the ballistic missiles that Iran has, while they travel far distances and have large warheads, were not as sophisticated as Iran has been leading on for the last few decades. This was the first major usage of these ballistic missiles that we saw, and Israel has learned a lot, according to a new book that I'm reading about the operation and about the Iran's attack. They're learning a lot about these ballistic missiles and how non-sophisticated they actually are compared to what originally was thought of this weapon.
The U.S. was basically leaking that this was going to happen. And I think to AZ's intel point, the Iranians still caught surprise. Sorry, AZ, go ahead.
Yeah, I now see y'all talked about. I'm gonna finish what the
Sorry, I got breaking news.
Okay,
I'm
go.
hearing loud noises, and I think it's the defense systems in Iran. It's a very big noises I just heard
Okay,
from
stay
this.
safe out there.
That's yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna quickly finish this. The source added that even though Iran will retaliate, this is a surprise and execution at a level similar to what Israel did in the Beeper operation. Thank you.
I put it's a quote from Trey Yingst. I put it in the nest. The key difference between what Vlad was signifying, you said that you didn't think there would be massive kind of retaliatory strikes. Both the Israel and Iran attacks that we saw last time were heavily telegraphed, and they almost denoted and delineated exactly what they were to attack. So you didn't see heavy repercussive you didn't see massive civilian casualties on either side because it was so heavily telegraphed. That's a very different scenario to what we're seeing now.
So
And which is why the potential for escalation is much higher. And also because the parameters, all of the threat assessments that we've looked at this evening were concerned with, degrading nuclear capacities. They weren't looking at degrading the military command and control structure. They weren't looking at even the nuke scientists. They weren't looking at, just wider range of targets. And this means that, again, all of our previous threat assessments should go out of the window because it is a regime change operation. And as a result, you've got to realize, even though the Iranian system is weakened, they still have very powerful proxies and allies.
So if I
Even
can
if they've been
actually
degraded,
jump
they
into
still have
that, because I got some
MRBMs and
news
whatnot.
for
Sorry, go
you
ahead.
that I think that kind of ties into this point. The spokesman of the Iranian Armed Forces, General Shakarchi, has said that Israel and, the key point, and the United States will, quote, receive a forceful slap, and Iran's armed forces are prepared and would be retaliating in force soon with counterstrikes. He said, quote, a retaliation attack is definite, God willing. Let me go to actually one of the things that kind of ties into this. and I think this was briefly mentioned earlier, and I'm going to go to Chief for this, Chief Jumper, so I think this kind of ties up to him. During the presidential campaign, there was a lot of conversations, a lot of reporting that Iran was considering assassinating Trump for revenge of General Soleimani. That was a huge thing. Even President Biden, during the election, very forceful comments and messaging to Iran: "You will not do this, and you not do this." Chief Trumpster, is this a situation where Iran, because of the strikes that happened, might be looking at these plans again and saying, "Is it now time to reactivate these assassination plans against President Trump?" Or because now they've assassinated more Iranian general figures, not only Soleimani?
No, I don't think that's a wise course. Right, because the thing is, right now, Marco Rubio has been saying that he has, not really been coordinating with Israel in terms of endorsing the strikes. Trump apparently, according to the Wall Street Journal, Trump told Netanyahu not to do strikes, according to Wall Street Journal. But then Israeli media is saying that this is a coordinated attack in conjunction with U.S. intel and all that. So I don't really think it would be wise for I guess Iran to be going after American personnel, troops, or facilities, because that would only drag us into that war. As I see it right now, we have Israel striking Iran sites and facilities. Iran is probably going to respond in some kind, like a tit for tat with a drone, like we saw before, but nothing really else. If there was to be a massive, big strike, we would have seen this a long time ago when they were launching things from airfields and when they were coordinating for further attacks. So I don't really think that Iran's going to go all out and escalate this even further. I think they just do a couple of strikes, very small types of responses, and settle for that. I think they're playing this game. They're basically trying to say, oh, we did this big thing and we struck back, but they're not really doing much at all. If they had a significant response, they would have done so already.
I
The
disagree with
window
that
is
so wholeheartedly because it's the regime's face saving at stake. If they don't react, it threatens the survival of the regime. So you can expect them to
Oh,
engage in
exactly,
extraordinary
well.
actions.
exactly. Yes.
Honestly,
To clarify, I expect them to do something, but some sort of maybe they'll fire some missiles, but I don't think it's going to be anything that's going to go over a line. I don't think they're going to go and do something really escalatory where they're firing and really blowing things up completely.
Sorry, Chief. This time, this time is just different. Let me just make this clear to you guys. This is like a 9/11 to the Iranian regime. This is crazy. This has never happened. And I'm a guy who has always been pro-diplomacy. And I was actually pretty confident that Iran and the US will reach a deal. But what we're seeing right now is that Netanyahu totally killed that chance for now. And Iran has to give a very strong response. And I'm not saying, I'm not trying to cheer for war, but this is like a necessity right now because what more could have Israel done? This is if Iran does not react to this heavily, I think it will just get worse. And I don't actually, at this point, I'm not even sure that even Trump can do anything about it right now, because and I think the biggest dent would go to the Trump presidency. It would be major if the U.S. can't control and contain Israel, because yes, Israel is pretty strong from within, but they just can't single-handedly defend themselves against Iran. And guys, it's not just Iran and Israel; it's Saudi Arabia, it's Qatar, it's Emirates, it's the whole region. And Iran is now there's chatter within Iran striking U.S. bases in the region. This can get very ugly very quick. And unfortunately, I have to say this: it's very hard for me to believe it has gotten ugly. And I'm actually I want to go to a place that was struck by Israel, which is like kilometers away from my house. And this is just beyond imagination what has happened.
but I don't think the Gulf
Unfortunately.
states are at risk because of the amount of diplomatic heavy lifting. When I've spoken, to the Saudi side, for instance, that they've had, even today, Faisal bin Farhan, the Saudi foreign minister, met with the Iranian foreign minister. They headed off any threats to
Yes.
Gulf sites in particular. So the people in the
Habiba,
firing
yes,
line are
actually,
American bases and
yes, yes.
positions, unfortunately.
Actually, we had one of the members of the Emirati royal family in Tehran a few days ago, and I was talking to him. He was talking about investments in Iran after a deal is reached. And just today, The Omani foreign minister announced that the next round of talks between Iran and US would be on Saturday. I'm afraid that
Sunday, yeah.
everybody has been caught off guard in this. Nobody was expecting something like this to happen.
Well,
And
what the Gulf has done is to hedge. So they've met again with the senior Iranians, like you said, the foreign minister, all these people. They've met across the board. Omanis have met, Saudis, the Emiratis. All of them have met to head off any potential attacks, any closure
yes,
of the Strait of Hormuz.
So
They've been
so
adamant
some
about
breaking,
doing that. So the key thing is,
Habiba,
yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
some breaking just quickly. Wave 3 seems to have started, and attacks on Tehran are ongoing. Based on reports, it's more towards the southern part of Tehran this time. Amir,
Absolutely
uh,
ridiculous.
are you
Absolutely
hearing something?
ridiculous.
Also, the advisor to Iran's supreme leader was heavily injured, Ali Shamkhani.
Yeah, that wasn't the first strike. But Amir, are you hearing anything about an attack happening right now on the southern part of Iran, of Tehran? Sorry.
I'm hearing strong activities in the defense systems, the air defense systems. I'm not just sure if we have any new impact, which at this point nobody would be shocked if it happens.
But a point that was brought
There's
up
several
before.
videos of it.
Sorry, I'll say this real quick. There's a point brought up about Israel because this is a very big. Israel's been provoking this for quite some time. With these strikes, it is definitely an escalation on Israel's part. Trump has tried his best to rein in Israel and tell them not to engage in this, at least according to Wall Street Journal reports, which I would be more inclined to agree with. And it just hasn't been enough. This entire conflict, this entire attack as of right now is Israel going and doing this. They're going out there and they are striking these things without, I guess, considering Trump and what he's gonna do or if he agrees or not with it. This is all on Israel's side, 100%. I really think that Trump has tried his best to stay out of this. Unfortunately, Israel went on their fruition and bombed these sites, and we're going to see what happens. But I really do hope that we don't put any of our resources or personnel or anything like this into this conflict. I really don't, and we're going to get dragged into this war.
The problem, Chief, is if Iran targets U.S. military assets in the Middle East, they're already there.
Yeah, that's the problem. If they do target a facility that has our personnel and resources in it in the Middle East or anywhere else, I mean, then there's no going back from that. Then we are dragged into this war. We are dragged into this conflict, and we're stuck in another Middle East war that lasts who knows how long.
I'm sorry. There's no factual basis for any of this. I'm sorry.
But in the last ballistic missile strike of Iran, they didn't target U.S. bases, and still U.S. took out ballistic missiles and took out drones. So although they're
can we have a dose of reality here? I'm sorry, but right now you're seeing Iran sit on its hands and do absolutely zero to anybody anywhere. It is taking this on the chin with no ability to stop Israel from conducting these strikes. And hold on, James, I'm not going to repeat myself. I'm trying to follow on with the current conversation here.
We just reported out what the Israeli army said. That's literally it. That they were expecting incoming attacks.
Yeah, great. That's fantastic. But what you're not seeing is anything that people are describing as a widening war, right? And Iran is in an isolated position in the Middle East, no matter what anybody says. Nobody in the Middle East wants Iran to get a nuclear weapon. Nobody wants Iran to win any kind of regional war or any kind of regional conflict. Nobody wants to see it. And the only people that do are outside looking in. That is Russia and China. That's it. Nobody else wants to see that happen. So if you take this all in conjunction, Iran has zero incentive, zero idea about wanting to widen this war. Will there be a counterstrike with ballistic missiles? Sure. But right now, they're taking everything on the chin. They're not doing anything about it. Israeli aircraft, from what I can see, given the range at which I'm seeing some of these strikes happen, you're looking at munitions that are being launched inside of Iranian airspace, not over Iraq or over Turkey or over somewhere. They are physically in Iranian airspace, and the Iranians are doing bubkiss.
I think it's quite premature to say that, though. I mean, let's see.
Right, but they're not.
One of the things, though, Craig, I think what we're missing, though, because if you look at Iranian retaliation patterns, all the way from General Soleimani, even before that, look at the Iranian leveraging ballistic missiles from ISIS, again, from ISIS targets from Iran against Syria, General Soleimani, and the 2 attacks against Israel,
Yep.
it takes days for the Iranians to do it. They just don't have any other capabilities to defend themselves. What I think, Craig, though, you're pinpointing something pretty significant is that the Israeli besides the intelligence community, the Israeli intelligence community, let's just ignore that for a second, its ability to deeply penetrate Iranian elite sites and conduct operations this way, which has been a well-known fact. This is just a definitive proof if anybody was still questioning it. But the problem that I think the Iranians are facing is they don't have an air defense capability. They don't have an air force to stop the Israelis. The Israelis have been able to exploit a weakness and operating with the capability of just absolute dominance. And then the question then becomes, from an American perspective, you know, we have way more capabilities. Now, the problem, I think, where the concern always becomes, and this is where one area I think, Craig, I would just take a step back and wonder is, there's not much Iran needs to do related to the Straits of Hormuz to really cause a lot of economic pain for Americans. We're already seeing the price of oil skyrocket. I think it's raised up to 7% the last I checked. It'd be interesting to check it again. And that's going to, everybody needs to look at the Straits of Hormuz. And if I really want to make Iran, the U.S., suffer because of this, the Straits of Hormuz is something I would be looking at.
I would be looking at that too, except you're going to piss off you're going to piss off two really big partners here. Number one, that is India. Number two, that is China. China does not like paying more for energy than it already does. It is a net energy importer, and it pays a lot of money to keep all those lights on in Shanghai and everything like that. The more they do that, I guarantee you Iran is going to get zero support from China because they're already facing an economic issue. And the last thing China wants to see is the price of energy skyrocket. A lot of that oil that leaves that area yes, of course it goes to the United States, everything like that. But a lot of those tankers actually leave the western part, right, of Saudi Arabia and things like that. China is not going to allow Iran to do that. I guarantee you, if Iran wants to get over its skis and play a game like that, yes, it will bite the United States in the butt. I agree. Yes. But that's nothing compared to how much pain it's going to inflict on China and how much pain that's going to inflict on India. And right now, Iran is not really looking to make enemies, right? It is not looking to make international problems for itself. If it does that, then it's going to be even more isolated than it has. And then you're going to see Russia step back and say, whoa, India and China's kind of pissed right now, and they're buying a lot of our gas. So why don't you not do that, Iran? You have to understand that while there is a domino effect in escalation from the Israeli perspective, I would agree, yes. But there is a reverse engineered domino effect of escalation that pauses Iranian action. So if you reverse engineer an Iranian move to inflict economic pain on the United States, remember the United States is one of the largest exporters of energy in the world, right? So
I'm sorry,
yes,
but
it'll
this doesn't
hurt.
make sense. China was moving around two carriers, yesterday even. They're making hay with this,
Sorry,
and they
if I
actually
can just
prefer to
jump in
see
with
Iranian
some
escalation.
That makes no sense at all.
if I can jump in
They've
with some
literally
breaking
moved their
news.
carriers into
Hold
like
on,
it's crazy what you're saying.
if I can break
Go
some
on.
breaking news, we're getting and this is this is something that has been expected, and this is exactly who I thought it would do it. The Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei has given authorization to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Aerospace Force to cross all red lines in response to the strikes attributed to Israel. So that is directly, and now we know, and those are the ballistic missile people, the people who can launch cruise missiles and drones.
While F-16s are currently in his airspace striking targets, that's great.
I want to just quickly welcome Dr. Anas to the stage. He's one of the preeminent oil and energy experts here on X. Dr. Anas, we were talking a little bit here about, first, we were talking about the oil markets, but I'm specifically want to follow Craig's line of questioning here, is what cards does Iran have to play at this moment with regards to energy and oil? Do they have any, and what do you expect to see
Sure.
from them?
First of all, breaking news, WTI, that West Texas Intermediate crude, went up by almost 14%. That was completely unexpected. And this is, as I mentioned earlier in the space, that this is really bad news for Trump. And if this, I expect this to go down toward the end of the day tomorrow. But if it stays, then it's really bad news for the U.S. economy and bad news for Trump. As for Iran, and especially we heard people talking about the Hormuz Strait. people must realize that most of the Hormuz Strait is in Oman and not in Iran. And therefore, if they want to do some operations there, that means they are going to occupy another country, although they are allies. The second thing is Hormuz Strait is very wide, and the Iran Navy cannot cover it, while the U.S. Navy, the British Navy, the Indian Navy, and several European navies, basically, including there are, I think, Australian Navy too in the area, so they cannot really close it. Regardless, most of what Iranians use on daily basis comes through that strait. So even their food items, even the cooking oil comes through that strait. So we heard our friend basically saying that China and India, who are friends of Iran, they don't want to be hurt, and Iran does not want to hurt them, but Iranians do not want to hurt themselves too. And we heard the questions repeated several times about why Iran is not reacting simply. In fact, we wrote this several times in our reports that Iran will never go for a war. They can go for retaliation, and probably it will be just a slap in the face, and that's it, simply because they spent 20 years under massive pressure, massive losses, all kind of losses, just to get that bomb and to come at the end, basically, and not to get it. That does not make sense. So they will do whatever to avoid a war, because the final objective is to get that bomb. So they can lose Lebanon, they can lose Syria, Yemen, Iraq, etc., but they want to get that bomb. So they are not going for full war simply because that's the main
Sorry,
objective.
breaking news. The Iranian leader has issued a statement.
Yeah, I've been.
I think he
If
just
I
read it
I
out.
can read that.
I don't know what you
Oh
say,
yeah,
Joe.
he's just giving like hints that Israel will pay a very heavy price. And if you guys already read it, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Go ahead, AZ. I saw your hand was up, and I'm just curious your thoughts here. I mean, do we're talking about retaliation from Iran.
May I finish just
Of course,
one?
Dr. Yeah,
Sure.
please.
Okay. So the main issue that we really got to watch right now, what's going to happen in Iraq, and the reason why, because there are major power shortages, major energy shortages in Iraq. One of the reasons for the main shortages are the lack of supplies from Iran. There were some gas coming in, and if that stops, if the supplies of energy stops from Iran, and now we are coming into a very hot summer, and Iraq is a very hot country, by the way, for those who do not know. So we might see chaos in Iraq, and we've seen demonstrations. Sometimes there were violent demonstrations. So when we talk about Iran, don't forget the impact on Iraq.
Well,
Back to you.
Dr. Anas, just a question about that. So, this sort of the regional impact of this before October 7th, this sort of conversation was always that essentially Israel, the Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and others were on the verge of forming a sort of alliance to isolate Iran. Of course, fears of Iran getting a nuclear weapon, and the U.S. was sort of involved as well. It seems now that despite what's been happening in Palestine and Gaza, there seems to be some complicit acceptance of Israel's actions towards Iran. Is that correct? And what do you see happen? Just now, I would love to hear more about the sort of surrounding region. What
If
do you
you look
expect to
at
see
social
happen?
media right now, if you look at social media, if you look, for example, at social media in Saudi Arabia, Syria, a lot of people are happy, and they are happy in a way that Israel has done it for them without any of them basically sacrificing anything. So there is some sort of happiness in the area that Iran been hit. Of course, one of the reasons because of what Iran did in Syria, what Iran did in Yemen, they killed a large number of people. So that's really the main reason for this sentiment. But the issue here is for Trump, and this is going to be my final comment. The issue for Trump is if oil prices are going to go up, and this is going to be a big problem. The funny part is it's all in the hand of China, because the only one who can help Trump on oil prices is China. And the reason why, because Chinese oil inventories have reached the highest level ever last week, and they are the only one who can dump oil in the market in matters of hours, before OPEC, before Saudi Arabia, before anyone else. And therefore, if Trump wants to kind of save the U.S. from inflation, he has only China to help. Back to you.
Thanks so much, Dr. Nuss. I'm kind of like, I don't know if I can ask you one other question about that. Is the spike in oil price simply around fear of Iran going offline, or is it something else?
Looking at history, we always have panic buying in Asia when the markets open, and there is something about Asia all the time. So I am not surprised. Oil prices went up by 14%. I will not be surprised if tomorrow, by the end of the day, they will go up by only 2 or 3%, simply because there is this habit of panic always in Asia. There is more sense of the markets in the United States than in Asia.
Thanks, Dr. Anas. Craig, I'm curious here. Some of the comments Dr. Anas was making, which was basically that come hell or high water, the goal of the Iranian government to stay in power is to develop a nuclear weapon. Is that true? And if that's the case, what does Israel have to do, or whoever, the United States, or whoever's behind all this? What do they have to do to stop this? Are we
Yeah,
talking
I
about
think
like
that.
knocking on? Like, are we talking about an invasion? Are we talking about boots on the ground?
Yeah,
Uh,
so I think that Iran, I said this earlier, I think Iran is looking to become the North Korea of the Middle East, right? Where we can't take any direct action against them because then that starts the nuclear, clock. And there's a very big reason why we haven't struck North Korea when North Korea has killed South Korean troops. There's a reason why South Korea has not. South Korea had a cruiser that was sunk, killed 43 South Korean sailors. Nothing was done to North Korea except for some punitive, cross-border fire, right? And that's what Iran is looking for. The Iranian regime is looking for that kind of insurance that right now the North Korean regime has, which is nobody can strike me, and I can do and say whatever I want. I can fire missiles all over the place, and I'm just this person that has to be negotiated with because I have nuclear weapons. That's Iran's ultimate dream, because once it has that, Israel can no longer strike Iran because they have nuclear weapons, right? Nobody can strike Iran anymore because they might lob a missile, right? And at that point, you start that nuclear escalation ladder of where does this go, right? And once the regime feels that it's at its death throes, then what you're really looking for is that person in the middle who refuses to launch the missile.
So Craig, if the only area I agree with you, the nukes, but I think there's something North Korea always had that Iran doesn't, and is Seoul is like right there at the DMZ and all long range artillery of North Korea.
Oh no,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
but I'm talking about the
Yeah,
fact
yeah,
that but let's be clear. If North Korea did not have a nuclear weapon and it was to do that, those positions 50 miles plus from the DMZ in South Korea would have been obliterated by the U.S. Air Force in a matter of days, right? So I think that's the insurance policy, right? And I think that what you're looking for is if you are a dictator regime, and you are looking for some kind of insurance, the ultimate insurance card, right, that Ukraine gave up, right, is nuclear weapons. And the only way to prevent that is two ways. One, to do what Israel is doing, which is to kill a scientist, to kill a nuclear facility, to do all the rest of this stuff. And two is regime change, right? Regime change is much harder to do when you're being attacked from the outside. It tends to create what political scientists consider to be the rally around the flag effect, which is no matter who the person is, no matter what's going on, your country's being attacked and you have to rally around the flag and support it, right? It's a political science theory that goes back decades. The idea that you can prevent Iran getting a nuclear weapon with boots on the ground is actually counterintuitive. That would actually escalate and move things faster, right? Hitler only started wanting to develop a nuclear weapon and really started putting serious thought into it when he realized, invading Russia wasn't such a good idea. And that's when the clock started, right, on the US side. And I think that the same thing applies. The more pressure that is put on to the Iranians by, say, boots on the ground, I think Mark, if he's still here, I think Mark mentioned that there is a nuclear reactor that is still active, right? And I'm, again, no expert on nuclear weapons, but I would assume that there's some way that Iran can use nuclear as a dirty bomb, some sort of weapon like that actually pushes that clock forward, right? Remember, Iran and Iraq had no qualms using chemical weapons during their war, right? And if the regime changed, if the regime is really up against it, and there are boots on the ground, you don't want to do that, right? You're trying to do what Trump did, right? Which is like the maximum pressure campaign. So to kind of like zip it up, there's only two ways to prevent Iran from getting a nuclear weapon. Boots on the ground doesn't do it. That does nothing. First of all, Iran is a huge country. It has a huge military. Its armed force, its air force, and its all the rest of its stuff's kind of a joke at this point. You have F-16s currently flying around looking for McDonald's right now over Tehran. You have, and so their air force has been exposed to be a joke. Their air defense is nonsensical, but their army is large, and their armed forces does have weapons, and they do have tanks, and they do have things like that. So that's ridiculous. Boots on the ground in Iran makes no sense. Regime change, or best scenario, regime change is the isolated possibility, right? That's the inside draw for those that play poker. If you're looking for a full house, you just destroy the facility and force Iran to build another one, right? And it just sets the clock back. That's the best way to do it.
Got it. Dr. Nuss, we're getting a lot of requests for you to keep talking. People are asking to hear more from you. I saw your
Hey
hands up.
guys,
I'd love to hear some
Thank
more.
you.
pretty much
I just
finished.
want to talk about regime change quickly. If we look at the history of Iran in the last 125 years, we see that there was a regime change earlier in the century, and it was domestic, has nothing to do with international pressure. And then we've seen a second one in 1951 that was domestic. And then another one in 1953 when we had a coup that was domestic with the help of the CIA at that time. But it wasn't because of international pressure. Then 1979, the revolution, that was domestic. So the history is very clear. However, the only international change to the regime in Iran happened during the World War II when the UK and the Soviet Union literally occupied Iran completely and they changed the regime. But they changed the regime from the father to the son. But generally speaking, when we talk about regime change, the history of Iran tells us it has to come from inside. International pressure did not change it. Occupation did, but when the occupation did, it did just change the regime from the father to the son. Back to you.
Thanks, Anas. Go ahead, AZ. I saw you were trying to speak and you unmuted, so go ahead.
Yeah, so I had a bit of a connection issue. I'm sorry, that was said already. So there was a statement someone brought up from the Iran Supreme Leader Al Khamenei. I want to read the statement from BNO News. This says, and I quote from Khamenei: "At dawn today, the Zionist regime extended its vile and blood-stained hand to commit a crime in our beloved country, further exposing its wicked nature by targeting residential areas. The regime must now await severe punishment. The powerful hand of the armed forces of the Islamic Republic will not let them go unpunished, God willing." In the enemy's attacks, a number of commanders and scientists were martyred, twice killed. Those succeeders and colleagues will immediately carry on their duties, God willing. With this crime, the Zionist regime has prepared a bitter and painful fate for itself, and it will certainly receive it. In case someone wants to read it again, I
No,
just sent
that's
it in the
good.
double
So,
chat.
so actually, if I may share some breaking news, also, give me a second. Let me pull it up. Israeli media reports, N12 specifically, reports that an initial retaliation by Iran against Israel is expected in the next 2 hours, with preparations underway to defend against such an attack. So let's see in the next 2 hours what type of a response might happen.
Hussein, I see your hands up. I see you're Iranian by blood, Arab by birth, and English by upbringing. You're international. Your thoughts here. We'd love to hear how you're feeling at this moment.
So first of all, I'm a British politician. I'm also a
Sorry,
lover.
guys, I got breaking news. I just heard explosions in Tehran, and I'm actually currently at an impact site in northwestern. I just wanted to check. It's unbelievable.
Okay.
I hope you get into a safe place, Samir, and definitely let us know if you hear anything else. Well, as Hussein go, and then Amir, I'd love to go to you right after.
Okay. So what I wanted to say to those people who are having a little ice cream fest about how America's great, how fantastic it is at blowing shit up, and Israel's even better, and you guys think it's just going to go away like that? If you think for one moment that the Iranian people and the Iranian armed forces are going to take this quietly and just do one little bomb thing or one missile thing, you're having a fucking laugh, mate. Iran is going to fight back, and not only is it going to fight back, it's going to unleash hell on Israel, because that's what we promised we're going to do. And you need to understand the psyche of the Iranian people.
What we
We are not
promised.
cowards. Let me finish. We
We
are not
thought you were
cowards. We
British.
are not cowards, okay? And we are going to fight whatever it takes, okay, to make Israel suffer the consequences. And I would like to see, for every person that's killed in Iran, I'd like to see the same number of people killed in Israel, Zionists to be killed. Because quite frankly,
Wait, I
you've
thought you were
attacked,
British.
shut up, Craig, you stupid
I thought
muppet.
you were British.
Yeah, I'm British. I'm also Iranian as well. Koske shema dar Kabe.
Greg,
So your
go ahead.
allegiance is to
Let
the
him
My
crown.
finish. Let him
allegiance
finish.
is to
Your
fucking
allegiance is to the
humanity,
crown.
and Israel's allegiance is to fucking Satan and the devil. That's what the fucking allegiance of Israel is. So what I'm
So I
saying
need
to
to
you is
jump in.
don't
Sorry,
sit.
Hussein. We got some additional news. Another area that was struck is the city of Tabriz. That is in, if I'm not mistaken, the southwest Iran.
No, it's not, mate.
Northwest.
It's
Northwest.
northwest.
You're
It's
right.
near the
You're right.
Turkish
Thank you.
border.
Northwest Tabriz and Avaz. That's it. Avaz is southwest. Northwest is Tabriz.
Avos is southwest.
Yeah.
Tabriz is
So
north.
Tabriz
North.
has also been targeted by Israeli airstrikes.
Yeah. Listen, at the end of the day, what I'm trying to tell you about the Iranian blood and about Iranian psyche, okay? We are not people that just surrender, and we're not people that are just going to take it lying down. And they're going to find out tomorrow or whenever it is, when we don't have to telegraph anything.
That's why I
But I
don't live in
promise
Iran.
you, missiles
Hussein,
will be
let me ask
going,
you. Let me ask you
missiles
just
will be
follow up.
going toward Israel, and Israel's going to get flattened. And I hope they kill as many people as they've killed in Iran.
Hussein, let me ask you a question. You heard from some other speakers on the panel, people from the Arab world, saying the general consensus in the Arab world is sort of a celebratory mood about this capability of Iran being pushed back. Iran's desire for a nuclear weapon, and people all across the Middle East are sort of, I would say, pleased that Israel is doing this kind of act for them. What's your response to that?
My response is this. First of all, I doubt very much that the people of Arabia, including Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and all these other countries, are pleased about it. I know the governments will be pleased. I know the people in power are pleased, because every single one of them bends over backwards for Israel and gets their permissions for everything from the United States to do it. But I promise you, the people are with the Palestinian people. The people are with the people who are suffering the injustices. And Iran is the shield that has protected the Palestinians and the Syrians and the Lebanese, and it's lost the battle that it has done over Syria. But Iran is not going to get defeated. It's not going to go away. And I promise you one thing, anyone that wants to be on the side of the Americans and the Israelis in this situation, they're going to pay the price as well. Don't think that the Iranian people are just going to lie down. We have come from Imam Hussein. You understand me? The martyr. That's what my country is from. So let them do what they want to do, and we'll see who's laughing at the end. And because you got to bear in mind, Israel is the same size as a fucking food stamp. That's what Israel is. We've got enough missiles to flatten every part of Israel. Okay, and we're going to do that. And let them. You remember what you saw Benjamin Netanyahu hands shaking like a leaf? He's going to get more of that coming to him. I promise you.
Thanks, Hussein. Amir Dayush, I did cut you off when you were speaking. I understand
Mickey,
you're
if I
in.
may,
Yeah.
sorry. Just so now, FAR's news agency. I mean, this has been saying, and then we heard IRNA dispute this. But now we're getting confirmation from FAR's news agency reports that the chief of staff of the Iranian Armed Forces, Major General Mohammad Bagheri, has been killed in the Israeli attacks.
Oh my goodness gracious!
So that is now confirmed by FARS that he has been killed.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
It's like if the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff was just
Chairman of the
killed.
Joint Chiefs of Staff. Yeah.
Bukhari, right?
Yeah, the guy.
Everybody's
Yeah,
killed.
Yes,
Bagheri.
actually,
Wow.
if this is confirmed,
FARS news
That's
agency
so
has confirmed it.
massive.
he's number 2 in
It's
Iran. Yes,
confirmed.
That's
this
so
is major.
massive.
Yes, this is real war. Yeah.
I mean, Dayush, how are you feeling? Like you're just, you can hear explosions where you are. You heard I think it was Hussein talking about this vengeance and Iran not taking this lying down. I'm just curious your sentiment, being Iranian, being in Iran
Thanks.
now, hearing the explosions.
Personally, my friend, I'm not a religious guy at all, but I'm not afraid at all either. Hussein is right in some aspects. Iranians are not afraid of war. Iran has very deep experience in war. And to be honest, I study Middle East politics. I'm very sad that my people have died tonight, but personally, I'm feeling okay. But uh, I'm the main thing that makes me upset the most is that Iran and the U.S. Were making progress in the nuclear talks, and the sentiment that is saying that Iran was stalling, that is, let me just be frank at this point, that is all just BS. Saying that Iran was trying to kill time, that does not make sense at all. Iran just wanted sanctions relief from America, and that was going to happen if this. I don't know if to call it crazy, to call it wild, to call it whatever. This was just we are in a new era right now. The reason that I can't really speak uh, to you is not that I'm afraid, is that we are in a 9/11 situation in Iran. This is like this will have major consequences in the region, not just for Iran, not just for Israel, for Saudi Arabia, for the UAE, for all of the countries, and most importantly for the United States and the Republicans, because Iran sees this not directly but indirectly from the US. It's hard to imagine that Israel attacks. Israel can do such kind of things without US assistance, US money, US approval. And I'm not saying that President Trump wanted something like this, but the thing is that we are in a new era. And for people to think that the regime change is a real possibility, I would say that is immature to say, because it is so much more
Amir, actually,
complicated.
if I could jump in, just
Yeah.
sorry, just a quick update on the previous breaking news of Tabriz. One of the areas that was specifically struck was the Tabriz. It was a ballistic missile facility or site, probably a base in Tabriz, and the images coming out is a massive explosion. I wouldn't be surprised if they hit just on the image. I'm speculating here that what they struck was a storage facility housing ballistic missiles in Tabriz because it was a ballistic missile site. So that is and it's the images are circulating. It's a massive explosion.
Yes, that is.
Can we talk?
Okay.
Can we talk about how crappy the Iranian Air Force is right now? I mean, I'm just saying.
Yes,
Vladimir, I
that
saw
is a
you
fact.
unmute. Vladimir, I saw you unmute earlier. I know you want to talk when we were talking about like Israel has essentially decapitated the military leadership of Iran, are able to sort of with impunity strike any target they want. You heard Amir Daryush and Hussein, both Iranians, say that look, it's sort of a 9/11 for them, and it's this is a historic moment with huge consequences. I'm curious your perspective,
Sorry.
Vladimir.
It's
Sorry.
9/11
I
is
gotta
something
ask
else.
Amir this. Vladimir. I gotta ask him. There's reports of now a massive explosion in west of Tehran. Oh, you know what? West of Tehran, Chitgar. Somebody from the area says literally felt the shockwave. Sorry. Go ahead, Vladimir.
Well, the attacks are ongoing like everywhere now. Like the Israeli operations are now expanding to other parts of Western Iran. So, but some of the points, like to see it as a 9/11. I mean, 9/11 was something else. I mean, it was an attack on the financial center of the U.S. This is like more a different war, but I mean, it's a matter of discourse. So it's up to them how they frame it. But it's a little bit different because there were like thousands of civilians killed. But I think this is really a shock for Iran that they lost so many IRGC commanders, and I think it's going to be very difficult for Iran to come back with this. And they're going to respond. Definitely, they're going to respond. But I think it's really a big, like, this is going to be a new Middle East. This is going to be a big setback for Iran. They're going to lose a lot of influence in the region. It's going to also be much more difficult for their proxies in the region to operate. And I don't see how Iran at the moment is going to get back from this. I mean, the comments on regime change, like Israel's not, or the US is not doing a regime change in Iran, I think that's too early to say. But I mean, this is going to make like huge shockwaves. I mean, because I remember like I'm in neighboring Iraq actually in the Kurdistan region, and Iran was very strong before. And now you see all the setbacks for Iran with, after the October attacks, the war in Gaza. You see now the Houthis are like also weak. The Hezbollah leadership is gone. Just the Hashishabi, they're still quite strong, actually. The PMF in Iraq is still quite strong, actually, compared to other Iranian-backed proxies. So we're going to see what the PMF is going to do. But this is really this is like unimaginable. And actually, there were actually already some people predicting something like this would happen, that there would be a new Middle East, and that Trump will do something with Iran or using Israel to do something with Iran. So this is really like a big shock for people in the region. And also, I don't agree with some of the comments of one of the other speakers that they were saying that the Gulf Arabs, they're like sympathizing with Iran because of Palestine. I think like the majority of Arabs or they sympathize with Palestine, but it doesn't mean they sympathize with the Islamic Republic of Iran, also because of religious differences, because the majority of the Sunni Arabs are not a big fan of the Shia Islamic Republic. Although they have like links with Sunni Islamist groups like Hamas and others, but I don't think there's a sympathy among Gulf Arabs for Iran so much. And I think actually that's also the current situation is really a big blow to Iran, because Iran was always try to project power outside of its borders through these proxies, which we also saw with the Hamas attack on Israel. And now it's actually on the defensive. So this is like a big change, because Iran in the last few years in the region, it has been winning through proxies, but now they're on the defensive.
Thanks, Vladimir. Myron, I'll go to you. I mean,
Yeah.
we talked about this sort of briefly, but there are some people here from sort of Arab states saying that, generally speaking,
Mickey,
the
if I could just
sentiment
jump in
Arab
quickly with some
states,
more additional breaking news. I'll share right now. The Israeli Air Force has conducted 5 waves of airstrikes across Iran. The Israelis is 5 distinct waves of airstrikes, resulting in hundreds of strikes in total. The declared targets from the Israeli Defense Force is operations including Iranian nuclear facilities, military sites, and high-ranking military nuclear officials. So 5 waves.
So, Myron, we saw sort of in Syria fall recently. That was sort of a big Iranian ally. Now seems to be more Western, I guess, Israel aligned. There was supposed to be an alliance between the Arab states and Israel before October 7th, which kind of got put on ice. But it seems like that's coming back. What's your feeling of where history is going here? People from Iran in this space saying this is an unbelievably big historic event for them, watching essentially their military heads get decapitated and Israel able to fly wherever they want and blow up whatever they want. What are you thinking, Myron?
Yeah, I see that we have a lot of people here from all over the world, which is good. So I'll kind of give a perspective from an American sense. The problem here is that, and I think, even regular normie Americans are going to have to pretty much figure this out, that we don't run our foreign policy. We were in the middle of negotiations with Iran. We had a meeting set up this weekend, to go, I think, over the 5th or 6th round of nuclear talks. And, Israel, I think did this purposely. They did it deliberately. And I think it's because they understand that they're going to attack Iran hard. They're going to kill their nuclear scientists. They've already launched, as of an hour ago, about 240 different airstrikes. They're probably up into 300s now. And that Iran's going to have to retaliate pretty hard. Now, Iran obviously has a very sophisticated ballistic missile program, and they can absolutely bypass the Iron Dome. They proved this last year, and let Israel know that they can touch them. And I think what's going to end up happening here, despite the fact that the White House doesn't want to say that they're culpable or that they weren't involved or they're not getting involved, we are going to have to get involved when it comes to defending Israel, because the reality is that Israel does not have a real capability of defending itself, despite what people try to say. They don't. The Iron Dome has weak points, and Iran can absolutely get through it. So we're going to have to go and move our,
Myron, to what extent do you think Trump is involved in these strikes?
At bare minimum, he knew it was coming. That's why he moved the troops out of the region. At bare minimum, he knew it was coming.
And do you think he, greenlit it?
Heart
of hearts, your gut?
You know what, man? I think, okay, so for me to properly assess this is what I'll say. Iran and the big discussion when it came to this nuclear talk, because we got to talk about the nuclear talk, so this can make sense what I'm going to say. They pretty much had, the U.S. said, you cannot enrich uranium. You got to completely disband your nuclear program, which is illegal because in international law, you can have a nuclear program for energy purposes. But for the U.S., they said you have to completely disband it. They came to some kind of agreement where maybe they would enrich in Saudi Arabia. They wouldn't enrich on Iranian soil. They'd slowly start to, stop it. But for Iran, they said, no, we're not going to stop enriching because we saw what happened. We saw what happened in Libya with Gaddafi. We saw what happened with Saddam Hussein. Giving up your weapons against the Israelis is suicide. And obviously, I completely understand their rhetoric with that. And then on top of that, Trump ripped up the nuclear deal back in 2018. So they have no incentive to trust us. So I think maybe they kind of had a disagreement with this with the nuclear program. I think at bare minimum, Trump said, "Give us more time," and Netanyahu disobeyed him. It's not uncommon for Netanyahu to act rogue. So I think he disobeyed him. And I think something else that's very important for people to know here is that Trump and Netanyahu don't like each other that much, okay? Trump is the type of guy that holds grudges. Back in 2020 or 2021, when Trump lost the election, the first phone call that Netanyahu made was to Joe Biden to congratulate him, and he put it out publicly. Trump felt this was a big betrayal because Trump had done a lot for Israel. Obviously, he's very pro Zionist. He, the Jerusalem, the embassy, all the things that he did for Zionists in America, he felt betrayed when Netanyahu did that. So, and he's never let that go. And obviously we know that Netanyahu doesn't obey and do what he's supposed to do as well. He's a hard-headed. But I think they just simply deal with each other because Trump's donors, like the Adelsons, are hardcore Zionists and they're close to Netanyahu. So it's a necessary relationship that they have to have. But I don't think either party really likes each other that much. And I think what Netanyahu is doing here is, we're going to attack no matter what. And they kind of know in the back of their mind that we're going to come in and defend them. We might not attack Iran directly, but we're absolutely going to come in to defend them because they can't defend themselves despite the fact that they claim they do.
Hazem, I saw you kind of thumbs downing around Trump's potential involvement here. I'm curious your perspective here. You're I believe Iranian and U.S. Department of State.
Thank you, Mickey. So here's the thing. I'm always shocked at Myron's contradictions. He contradicts himself often. On one side, he says this is coordinated with Trump. On the other side, he says, Bibi is disobeying Trump. Myron, please stop getting your analysis from X. That is not the source.
To be fair to Myron, I think he said that.
But give me a second here.
But
first of all,
just quickly, Hazem, just quickly, just to be fair, to be fair to Myron, Hazem, I think his point was at minimum Trump knew it was coming.
Yes.
And most likely I think his point was most likely his belief, I think if I'm summarizing, is that Trump was working on a nuclear deal with Iran, and Netanyahu went on decided to go on his own.
Let me quickly rephrase because this guy completely is mischaracterizing my position. What I said was, at bare minimum, Trump knew it was going to happen. That's why he pulled the troops out. Does that mean he agreed with it or wanted it to happen? No, he wanted to go the route of diplomacy. Remember, Trump has an ego. He wants.
So all of that, Myron. Excuse me. That's all speculations. I'll tell you what happened the past few hours.
Hold on.
I'll tell you what happened the past few hours.
Hold on, man. Relax. Okay, I'm just going to give you my position so you can appropriately attack it. Okay, because I know that's what you want to do. Clearly, you have an adversarial position here. What I'm simply saying is, Trump knew it, how it was going to happen. He might not have agreed with it because I think he wanted to go the route of diplomacy, but it happened anyway. That's what I'm saying.
Go ahead, Hazem.
Thank you, Myron. So here's what happened in the past few hours. The IDF did notify the U.S. side of an impending strike. Through that notification, the IDF presented a strong case for a strike, including activities Iran has been doing during the past weeks, during the negotiations, not only on enrichment, but also on creating what's called the gun, the uranium gun, which is the device used to activate the uranium core that is the bomb aspect of a nuclear bomb. So Iran was going forward in creating a weapon while they were at the table with the American side. That was sufficient to truly upset the president. At the IAEA statement this morning, that was pretty damning. It was a perfect storm to go and conduct a strike at this point. And it's not a secret that President Trump is sick and tired of the negotiations at this point. Negotiations that through weeks of back and forth have gone nowhere. The US side is very clear, no enrichment. And Iran continues not only to defy that red line, but also to go on public media and make statements and claims that the US is agreeing to an Iranian enrichment program in something that looks like the JCPOA, which is not true. So Iran alienated Trump, and you have to admit, Trump gave Iran a golden opportunity to get itself out of this miserable place the country's in right now. The dollar equals 1 million riyals right now. The inflation is beyond control in Iran. And Iran is unable to defend itself. I mean, Myron would like to tell you that Israel's 3 layers of air defense is ineffective. Well, we saw how effective the Iranian air defense is tonight. That did not even activate and continue to and the strikes are continuing, by the way, and will likely continue for 2 more weeks without a single anti-air weapon being launched against incoming Israeli fighters and bombers. There is a reality that the Iranians need to understand today. And finally, and I've said this, I've said 2 things on TV actually the past 2 days that came true today. Trump wanted to go to war with Iran at this point, but did not want to go to war with Iran. This is the perfect scenario. An Israeli strike with no direct American involvement.
So
But
what's
with
your actual
sorry,
argument? Look, bro. I'm trying to figure out what your actual argument is to what I said. What is your argument?
No, I moved past what you said. Actually, I'm talking about what has happened the past few hours and what's about to happen the next couple of weeks. So the strikes strikes will continue.
You cut me off when I was talking to make an argument. So there's no argument then.
So okay, sure, whatever makes you happy.
Hey guys, this is a news space. I have a point of clarification. Myron, you said earlier that Trump pulled troops out of somewhere. Where did he pull them out of?
He did not pull troops.
Myron said that. I'm just asking Myron to clarify, please.
Embassy government employees. That's what I meant. Not troops.
Okay, so non-essential embassy workers, basically.
Yes.
Okay, that's not troops. I just wanted to be very clear because, like, I've been here for hours. A lot of us have been. This is a news space. I'm not a journalist. I'm being very clear. We just need to be really factual and committed to the facts tonight.
All right, embassy employees.
Non-essential employees.
Let me just clarify this because for anybody who doesn't.
When you say troops, that's U.S. military.
Yeah, no.
So, CENTCOM, guys, give me a second because I know a thing or two about this. CENTCOM allowed the families of personnel to depart the bases, not personnel, families of personnel, and there may have been some confusion on reporting on troop withdrawal or troop relocation.
Well, here stateside, mainstream media is reporting here in the U.S., based in Washington, D.C., I can tell you, everything I read today said non-essential embassy-related workers. So I'm assuming some State Department people and others. But yeah, good point, Myron, about likely those people were pulled for a reason because of intel. I mean, I think that's the big thing here is that U.S. intel was clearly helpful. This is
so. If I can jump in with
a big night.
some news, if I may.
Hey guys, but hold on, don't cut me off real quick.
Just breaking news for everybody. Sorry, and then you can continue. So I just really want to share this. Iran Atomic Agency chief says the Natanz reactor is severely damaged after Israeli strikes. So the Natanz reactor has been severely damaged. Continue.
Yeah. Look, it's a long night. Everybody in Washington,
guys.
Washington is definitely on edge tonight. Hold on. Wait a minute. Washington is on edge tonight. I'm about to head out, but I would be wrong to leave without saying for the past few hours, Amir in Tehran has been so clear-eyed and just really incredible given that he's in Tehran, right? Amir, you're in Tehran.
Thanks.
I just want to tip my hat to that, especially given you said everything is feeling like 9/11 over there. As an American, just want to say my heart is with you. Thanks for your contribution tonight. I'm headed out. Peace to everyone.
That's right. Mark, just wanted to make a quick comment.
I need to go to Mark. I need to go to Mark on this.
I need to go to bed as well.
I need to go to Mark. I need to go to Mark. Mark,
I just want to say good night. That's it.
Good
Thank
night.
you very much for letting me come up, guys. I appreciate it.
Isn't that kind of interesting how this guy
Myron,
tried to put an argument and then he couldn't find something to argue about and then he just wanted to yap?
Wait, hold on.
Yeah, I hate when
Myron,
people do that on Twitter Spaces, bro.
Just give me a second.
What they'll do is
Mark, I need to go to Mark with this.
Can we not be children for a second?
Hold on a second. We have a nuclear expert, and a nuclear reactor has been hit, so we want to hear from
exactly.
From Mark.
I really need to get to this. So, Mark, the Natanz reactor severely damaged. Explain to the listeners what that means and the implication of that, please.
So Natanz, so far as anyone knows, does not have a reactor. It has uranium enrichment facility. So a relatively small one. That is just like, again, I love that I can refer to a recent pop culture phenomenon. This is like the facility that is attacked in Top Gun 2. So this is a facility that does not have a reactor. This matters because even a small reactor that has been running can produce a lot of highly radioactive particles, which I'm not saying that itself would make it dangerous. It's just a completely different level to, say, people on the ground if the material were to be released in a large amount without warning. It's very different to have a reactor operating versus a uranium enrichment cascade. If you enrich uranium, you can stand right next to that uranium, no problem. It's only after going into and sitting in a nuclear reactor that it becomes extremely radioactive. So just wanted to clarify, the Natanz facility is the enrichment facility that has spinning tubes that are filled with uranium gas. The uranium gas is not something I would want to be like hanging around with. I mean, but I would need to check. I'm not a chemistry expert per se, but this is something where if there's an issue with the uranium hexafluoride gas or leakages somehow leading to issues with hydrofluoric acid, which I don't think would happen. I think you have to use a very specific facility to convert the uranium hexafluoride back into uranium.
Mark, let me ask you a question here. Like, and I want to go to Jeff right after, just to follow up on the comments from Craig and Hazem and Vladimir about this. The goal of this to basically push the timeline back for Iran's ability to enrich, uranium. How far, or do these actions push this back far enough? Do they make a big impact on the timeline it would take for them to enrich uranium here, or not?
It depends. It depends on how many of the enrichment centrifuges and of the facility itself, the essential operating elements of the facility, have been damaged or destroyed. So if they did damage these very delicate, spinning tall enrichment centrifuges, then yeah. The way enrichment works is that if the more enrichment centrifuges and the more ability each one has to do enrichment work. I'm being weird with my words here, but it's kind of one of the weirder subjects that mainly uranium nerds get into when they start playing the stock market, and they all get obsessed with enrichment. But these centrifuges are used where each of these spinning things adds a little bit of capability to do the enrichment. And the more of these are spinning and the more powerful they are, the more you can enrich the more material further towards being a bomb. And so if this facility is damaged or knocked offline, then Iran will be stuck with whatever stockpiles they have at whatever enrichment levels those stockpiles already exist until they get the facility back up in the running, if they ever do.
Thanks, Mark. Jeff, welcome to the space. Always great to have you, my friend.
Mickey, would you allow me a quick question to Mark? Because there's something that actually came up on another space, and it's interesting. Can I get a second?
Yeah, go ahead quickly. Yeah.
So, Mark, something new came up an hour ago. One of the a heavy water storage facility seems to have been hit, which is more of a plutonium question than a uranium question at that point. We've heard a lot about the uranium enrichment program, but my understanding that you have two routes into a fission warhead: the long-term enrichment, quick assembly of uranium, or short-term enrichment and complex assembly of a plutonium warhead. Have you heard or seen any attempts by Iran to go the plutonium route? Because we haven't. It came up during the JCPOA briefly, but the plutonium being facilities being hit as well is quite interesting tonight.
Right. So I mentioned before, and for anyone new to the space, there are two main routes that a country can get nuclear weapons if they're not just receiving the weapons or receiving the materials from another country. Both of these routes are talked about in the movie Oppenheimer. I'm sorry I keep mentioning popular movies, but that's one of the ways that if anyone's curious about the subject, they can go away from the space and read and learn more. So the two main routes are enriching uranium. So you get uranium out of the earth, you spin it in skinny tubes until you get a higher concentration of call it the active ingredient, the spicy part. And when you get a high enough concentration of that uranium-235, which is, it means you can make a bomb. On the plutonium route, which is the main thing talked about in the Oppenheimer movie. What you're trying to do there is you take uranium, either enriched or not, and you put it in a special reactor. The heavy water refers to just the the special water they use to allow the reactions to occur even if you don't use enriched fuel. You put that fuel in that heavy water reactor, maybe not so long, just briefly, and then you take the fuel out. It's nice and radioactive, but you use machinery and equipment to split it apart and break it down. What you're searching for in that fuel is the small amount of plutonium that has formed as a byproduct of doing nuclear reactions. So that plutonium you can then separate out, and you need depending on your nuclear bomb design, you typically would think of needing less plutonium to make a nuclear bomb, but it's a much more complicated bomb. Typically, you have to implode that plutonium. You put a few kilograms of plutonium in a ball, and then you have to fire explosives at it very, very, very carefully. So the plutonium route is known to be a more difficult thing, but there are bombs that combine several different things at once to make specific effects. We would think that the plutonium route would need very sophisticated explosives, very sophisticated explosive controls. It's difficult physics, it's difficult engineering, it's difficult munitions work, and it's just a little bit of a pain in the ass because you have to have that reprocessing plant to take the fuel out of the heavy water reactor that has that little bit of plutonium in it, and then you have to reprocess that. The IAEA has examined Iran's work in all these areas. The Arak, Arak facility had a heavy water production plant. So that's a plant that takes a bunch of energy and it uses water and gets the it gets the tiny amount of the water that is naturally deuterium heavy water, not H2O, it's D2O, it's hydrogen with an extra neutron. I'm going to stay away from physics from now on, I promise. But so you have at Arak, you have a plant that separates out the tiny bit of special water, then it uses that special water to make a little reactor. There's a little reactor next to it that is able to produce spent nuclear fuel that has the plutonium in it, but then you would need to reprocess it. And as far as I can tell, this is not a route that Iran has taken. Iran, under pressure and to meet obligations to other nations, filled in that reactor and damaged it and put itself out of service. Both the enrichment route and the plutonium reactor plus reprocessing route are ones that countries have used to get nuclear bombs, sometimes both routes at once.
Thanks, Mark. Jeff, love to hear from you, man. What are your thoughts here? It seems like a pretty big moment here. We've had people from all over the world, and what are you thinking?
Yeah, so Mickey, thanks for bringing me up. It's really crazy. I mean, literally 5 hours ago, I was on the White House lawn having a picnic with the president, right? So if you saw my posts, the congressional picnic was going on. The president and the first lady came out, and literally there was no indication that any of this was going on. And to be fair, I mean, the lawn with the picnic was packed with congressional members. So I don't know if any of them really knew or to prepare for this. So if you talk about it from a perspective of keeping things secret and not exposing the intelligence, it was quite phenomenal. I mean, literally, we were all sitting on the White House lawn watching him shake hands when all of this broke towards the end of the picnic. So quite amazing.
What do you think here? Because we had sort of differing views on like the level of awareness and involvement from the government, from the United States government. What does your kind of gut instinct tell you about the level of our involvement here, if any?
Yeah, give me 5 minutes. I'll be right back.
No problem. Go ahead, Vladimir.
Yeah, actually, President Trump, he told Fox News that he knew about the strikes beforehand, but there was no surprise. But he said that the U.S. was not involved military-wise, so he hopes that Iran returns to the negotiation table. And he also said that several people in the Iranian leadership are not coming back. And that he keeps
So
on
this is something. Sorry, Vladimir. I need to jump in quickly. Just more reporting on strikes. Iran apparently struck a missile site in Kermanshah, Iran, and there's also reports of strikes in Bashir, Iran, as well. The strikes in Kermanshah is pretty
Oh man.
interesting because that is, yes, Bashir will. Don't know if it's a nuclear facility. Don't know.
Yeah.
But
this is actually very important, and I need to dive into the news. Bushehr, like Bushehr, that's what you've seen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so just anybody can DM me. One of the things I think I mentioned in the very first moment I talked on this space, Bushehr is the location of an operating commercial nuclear plant. So that will be a big reactor that makes power for a few million people. Several reactors are under construction being built by the Russians. This is a type of reactor and a type of facility that just is not particularly good for any kind of bomb making. We had somebody mention before that perhaps the extremely radioactive material that comes out of the core of these reactors when it's done making electricity could be used in a dirty bomb. I'll just say that dirty bombs work by panic and misinformation and just annoyance. They're not like we could go into that later if somebody wants to know what I'm going on about with dirty bombs, but that's not the same thing as like this giant mushroom cloud that flattens cities and, you know, skeletonizes everybody or whatever. It's not that kind of thing. It's something that annoys people and causes a lot of property damage and maybe panicked evacuations, but it's not like something that, if it's a powerful explosion, is by definition dispersing material in a way that specifically makes it a lot less dangerous and something you can put on a mask and put on some protection layers and avoid using basic measurement devices. So somebody claimed that maybe the civilian reactor, which is under extremely tight IAEA safeguards, so the International Atomic Energy Agency has already put out several statements saying this is very tense, we're watching it, we're on the ground, where our inspectors are reporting in, our eyes are on this. I need to now check and see the news on Bushehr. Thanks for mentioning it.
Yeah, I'd love to come back to you, Mark, because I mean, couldn't they use that use that reactor to sort of for a short period of time, like irradiate some fuel and maybe make a weapon?
It's not. I mean, they can technically do things, but nothing they would do ends up with anything like why people are scared of nuclear weapons. Does that make sense? Sort of a weird answer.
Yep,
it's
makes
just
sense.
like,
yeah, it makes sense.
They might do something that can lead to fear and people chattering a lot and some nasty mess that you have to clean up, but it's not like a biological agent that can spread beyond all proportions because it's multiplying in human bodies.
Is all Rosatom fuel in that reactor?
Yes, it should be. So Iran's enrichment program was pretty much just not very much compared to even the reactor they had. I mean, they would have been able to provide only a tiny portion of their own enrichment needs. The enrichment program was kind of like just saying, see, we have a reactor and that means we can have an enrichment program. But it's kind of like an eye roll thing. Their fuel and their enrichment resources would have come from Russia.
Yep. Let's while you look on that, we can go away from nerdy nuclear power stuff for a little bit. And Cliff, I see your hand up. We'll love to hear your perspective.
Nikki, can I come in with a quick update if you don't mind?
Yeah, go ahead.
There's
I'll do a quick update and then we'll go to you,
statements
Cliff.
from the U.S. government. President Trump came out saying that Iran cannot obtain a nuclear weapon, and though we still hope that the negotiations will continue, another unnamed American official is saying we are still hoping that Sunday's talk will happen.
Thanks, Cliff. We've heard from, I guess, one side of the aisle, one side of the argument, which is basically like it goes something like this: Iran's neighbors, which is Israel, the Arab states, and then sort of the U.S., the big gorilla, all of them don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon, and essentially, there's nothing Iran can do to stop Israel or any other major power from blowing up whatever they want to blow up and slowing down whatever they need to slow down, because Iran's military is just not capable of going toe to toe with a modern military in that way. I'm curious your perspective on that and sort of where we go from here. There's so many angles on it, so I'd love to hear what angle you're taking. But that's sort of where I think a good thread for us to pull on.
Absolutely. Well, what I can tell you is from where I'm gathering and collecting from an Iraqi perspective, because I've been talking to a lot of people in Baghdad recently, I mean, back and forth, reporting from there. Uh, the region is not as worried about Israel having nuclear weapons as Iran. When you ask the people in the region what the reason is that they're worried about Iran having a nuclear weapon, they say, well, Israel is not in Baghdad, it's not in Yemen, it's not in Beirut, it's not in Syria, but Iran sent its IRGC and they're trying to, I mean, they're actively involved in politics, in control there, supporting their proxies and militias. So we worry about Iran having nuclear weapons because this will empower their proxies even more. Iran having a nuclear weapon means that the whole region will go in a race with Iran to possess nuclear weapons as well. This means Saudi will enter that race. Other countries, Egypt and everybody and their mom in the region would want to have a nuclear weapon to protect themselves from Iran. So the way they look at Israel having the nuclear weapons, they look at Israel a lot mainly as a rational state that will not use it's for deterrence, but they cannot feel the same way about Iran. They could be wrong, they could be right, but that's the sentiment about Iranians having nuclear weapons. I just have two questions, if you don't mind. One for Mark and one for Craig or Setrep. I've heard Mark saying about Bushehr that it supplies electricity to millions of Iranians. From what I understood is that Bushehr is responsible for only 2% of the power uh, consumption or usage supplied to the Iranians. The second question is now that we saw that the command is taken out, a lot of the tier one leadership is eliminated. Are we going to see the control in the communication centers being destroyed so they can have the whole the the Trinity, the triple C, the command control and communication aspects gone, or you think that it will stop at this level? Thank you very much for allowing me to speak and ask these questions.
Can I gotta go. So can I
Yeah,
just
for
answer
sure,
that
Craig.
question just very briefly? Yeah. So the what you're seeing is Israel effectively going after top tier targets. We've already discussed that, who they're going after. They're striking at will. We haven't heard any reports of Israeli aircraft being shot down, right? I've kind of said that ad nauseum. But I just want to cycle back to what I said first when I joined the space, which is past is prologue, right? What they're striking now gives you an indication of what they're going to strike later. I don't feel like Israel is going to be striking airfields and taking out the Iranian Air Force. I don't think they're going to be doing that kind of thing because then you actually get into real issues, right? Once you start actually knocking out their Air Force, that's a whole other kettle of fish, especially when it comes to regional deterrence and what it means to be a regional power. And I don't think Israel is going to cross that line. I think the only targets that would remain outside of their individual targets, the only sites that remain are just the sites that you described, right? Which is launch control, logistics, stores, gas, that sort of thing. I can't imagine Israel risking um, any further strikes beyond those because those strikes inhibit Iran's ability to respond, or at least limit their ability to respond in terms of numbers, right? And so I think what you saw it tonight was the main strike, was what they're going after. What you're going to see later is to prevent Iran from striking further, right? And I think, or at least limit their capacity to strike further. And just to put a knot on this, I think that people are, I may be wrong, but this is my hot take. I think people might be making a bigger issue out of this than it may be. And let me just explain. I am not confident in Iran's ability to influence the greater Middle East at all. As far as I'm concerned, it's as isolated as it can possibly be. It's been shown to be militarily impotent. If I'm an Iranian, as I'm not, but to have this happen and have there be no response or anything, it's got to be greatly humiliating. And for Iran to continue and climb up that ladder and to keep fighting, they further risk degradation of their military forces, which further exposes them to be as impotent as they look, right? Everybody remembers the blown out tires that Russia had when it crossed the border of Ukraine, right? Everybody remembers those. What you're seeing is the metaphorical tires coming off the Iranian military truck. And for Iran to push the envelope and to keep going further makes them look or exposes the reality, right, of what they are capable, or in this case, not capable of doing. So it may be Iran's, yes, they'll launch cruise missiles. Yes, they'll launch ballistic missiles. Israelis will in all likelihood sadly die.
But do you think they go back to the
But
negotiating table like pretty quick?
no, I
Okay.
don't know. The negotiating table has been to put a period on it. The negotiating table has been turned into kebab at this point. There is no negotiating anymore. The only thing Iran can do to save face is fire some missiles, set back, don't keep on poking an air force that clearly has the ability to destroy your entire network, right? If it wants to, don't push that further, because if they do, then you're getting into some really hairy areas, because now your air force is going to be struck. Army barracks. Israel has total air dominance over Iran right now. I said earlier they're looking for a McDonald's somewhere, because I'm sure those pilots are. And I don't say that flippantly as a joke. I mean that in reality. Like you have an air force inside your airspace, and you can't do anything about it. And you're supposed to be a regional superpower. Give me a break, right? So I think that all Iran can do is step back from the table and not provoke anymore, because it's not just about saving their honor and doing all the rest of it. They have to seem like they're a credible military at this point in embassies all over the world. And right now, they don't look like they're a credible military. They look like, they're the JV team that, playing left bench, right? Or playing left out, right? And if they keep on going, they risk true exposure on a geopolitical level of just how impotent their military may be. And that mask is slowly coming off. So that's my 2 cents. But
So I just need to
that's all I
jump
got. Y'all have a good
in.
night.
I'm trying to get the original quote because I just saw this kind of break on X, but Trump says that the U.S. will defend itself and Israel if Iran retaliates.
Yeah, I have the full quote. This is from Brett Baer talking about to Fox. It says, President looking to see if there is retaliation. The U.S. will defend itself and Israel if Iran retaliates. This is from, again, Trump talking to Brett Baer about 11 minutes or so ago.
Thanks, Trumpster. Go ahead, Colonel.
What I find fascinating about all this, right, is if we go back, let's say 6 months, right, maybe even more, and we talk about Western air defense systems versus Eastern or Russian air defense systems. You have a situation that's developed where there was an expectation of parity, that the West and the East had similar air defense systems. And the truth of the matter is, clearly, Russian made air defense systems are not as capable, and you've created an imbalance of power, right? And to be fair, look, Iran and others have bought these Russian air defense systems, and now they're stuck with them. And you sit there and you look at them and you go, okay, they're not good. We've learned this from Ukraine, and now you have a situation where Israel, the United States, can literally walk into Iran. And look, I get it. If you're in support of Iran, you're frustrated, you're angry because the air defense systems that you bought, they're not living up to expectations. But but from a strategic perspective, you've created this imbalance of power, right? Where Iran is exposed and Israel has an opportunity, and it's been exposed to a degree by the lack of ability in the Russian-Ukraine war to come in and literally control your airspace and kind of dominate what they want to do. So it's fascinating if you look at all the way back and figure out how all this has developed to a degree only in the air domain perspective, right? Because land and sea domain, none of this has changed. but in the air domain, it's literally become the expectation of how do I control warfare.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Go ahead, Mark. I saw you raise your hand. Do you have some news for us?
Well, just responding to the question somebody put to me, there were two questions. One was to me. The statement was that the nuclear plant only provides a tiny percentage of Iranian electricity. Well, I was estimating, and I just looked up the actual numbers. That nuclear plant last year provided just under 2%. Iran has about 90 million people. We don't have the data from 2024. That was the data from 2023, but it was a decent but not great year. So that's about 2 million people's worth of electricity, which makes it a very good estimation, I think, for midnight Eastern time. So take that.
Thanks, Mark. Go ahead, Hassan.
Yeah, I would love to reflect on what Craig said because here's the problem with Iran. It behaves like a superpower, at least a regional superpower. It's defying every agreement, every law that governs international affairs and relations, spreading militias all over the region, trying to export what's called the Islamic Revolution ideology, obviously exporting missiles and drones to Russia to use against Ukraine. It's acting as if it can defend itself, and obviously it cannot. So what does this mean? What does the strike or the next 2 weeks of strike mean for the future of Iran and the future role of Iran? This is the question we really need to start focusing on.
Do you think that it only reinforces why that government wants to get a nuclear weapon? Like, it's sort of, now that there is such a strategic imbalance, almost makes it inevitable that they have to either get a nuclear weapon or die.
Well, maybe dying is not the worst thing for that government to die. It's not the worst thing to happen for the people of Iran. The people of Iran do not. I mean, this is a country with massive inflation, shortages in food, shortages in some critical medicines. I think the people of Iran do not want enriched uranium. They need services. They need their currency stabilized. They need some edge at least, or some margin of democracy and freedoms. This is what the people need. We cannot just look at a small group of religious extremists who are governing the country, usually by force, force used continuously against protesters. Uh, these are not the people representing the country. So,
are you advocating for regime change?
well, that is the question. I'm not advocating for it, but that is the question on the table. Is it ripe for regime change? And I don't think I'm against every notion of an external regime change, but is this an opportunity for the people of Iran to rise and change their path? This may be it. This may be the only opportunity.
Mir Dayush, we have you here. You're Iranian. You're in Iran. I'm not asking you to advocate for anything, but just to respond to some of the things Hazem is saying around, basic services being the most important thing. How important do you feel, a nuclear weapon is for the security of Iran?
Uh, no, if not now, then when? This is like the bottom line. It's honestly, this day would go down as the day that the Middle East history changed forever. This is the golden question: will Iran go after the nuclear weapon now that it is prone to Israel? And maybe in a scenario we can see that Iran retaliates against Israel in such strong manner that would somehow save face. But this is pretty optimistic what I'm saying right now. I think the best answer, I would give it a 50-50 shot. There's a 50% chance that Iran might go after the nuclear weapon, but then we would have all Iran's neighbors, Russia, China. It would be a new mess for the United States and all of basically the whole world to take care of. We got Turkey, lots of players in the region. And on the other hand, the Iranian regime, yes, with one strike, this damage has never been done to Iran in this way. But it would be pretty immature to say that it is now collapsing, it's gone, bye bye. No, it won't be like that. This would be, I think, this is the tip of the iceberg for the tensions, unfortunately.
I want to
I
ask you like a little bit of a follow-up question because as you say, this has sort of never happened to Iran in this way. We're talking about the complete decapitation of the military leadership and essentially Israel